I'm a hard study. Some people say I'm very difficult. Some people say that I'm not easy to get along with. But I'm a results person.
So I am here with my favorite publicist in motion, the legendary Mr. Angelo Ellerbee. Mr. Ellerbee, thank you so much for even coming on my show. We're going to call it a show because that's what it is, and just chatting with me tonight. So
I just want to thank you. As I said to you earlier before we pushed that tape button, I adore you. I appreciate your work ethic. I love what you do, and may God continue to bless you and reach the apex of your success. God bless you.
Mr. Ellerbee. It is, because you know why? Because you at the helms yet again of my success. You know, you were one of the first publicists to let me get those celebrity interviews. And the only thing that you said was be professional. And I took heed to that. So thank you so much.
Always my pleasure. Always my pleasure.
So my first question, Mr. Ellerbee, you have over 45 years of experience in the industry. Tell me how it kicked off.
You know, I'm blessed, very, very blessed. Blessed to have a wonderful team of people in my life, starting with my mother and my 4 sisters, which led me to having a clear understanding that God is just so great. And if you take a step, he'll take 2 steps. He'll take you from that bridge over to across that water to your landing spot. So I began in the city of Newark, for which I'm still have a romance with. I call it the greatest city in the world, because it gave me so many opportunities. It allowed me to go and grow. It allowed me to be who I was. It accepted me with all the trials and the tribulations of my life, as it was my chosen selection of my sexuality. They embraced me, they loved me, they cared for me. And I just thought that because my mom was so special to me and my sisters were very special to me, it was my job to be a contributor to my family. And my mother was a no-nonsense woman, and you were going to contribute. She said, if you sit at this table, you eat at this table, then you're going to contribute to this table. Mm-hmm. And thus, that didn't mean because I was the youngest. That meant everybody. Everybody had to be a contributor. And so I found myself doing things to really, one, satisfy my family and to aid and support my family by any means necessary. And I began in the performing arts. I always wanted to be a part of something. My mother told me as a child, she said, you know, you're great because you're my child, but I want you to go on to be the greater. And then she says, if I'm not around, I want you to be the greatest at what you go to do. And so I live that. You know, I live with being great and then trying to be the greatest at what I go to do. Thus, I began doing fashion shows in the city of Newark. This was a city that I thought was just wonderful because the mayors and the council people were so supportive of my career over the many, many, many years. They would give me a job at 16 years old. I was making like $45,000 a year. And I was working in the mayor's policy and development office. And I was a contributor. But I did these fashion shows, and they would always come to me and say, Angelo, you know, it's fundraising time. Could you do a fashion show? So I designed clothes. I graduated from the Fashion Institute of Technology with my major in designs. And so I would do these fashion shows. I originally started doing fashion shows because I wanted a place in society. And that was like at 14 and 15 years old. I mean, I would go and hustle up the money to rent the facility to do the da-da-da-da. And my family did not take me serious. They really did laugh at me. They was like, boy, what are you doing? And then there was a club in Newark called Mr. Wonderful's. And it was a super nightclub where everybody would go. So I would go to the supermarket. My mother said you had to have a job. So I'd go to the supermarket and you would have to bag up the food and put it in the cart and hoping that the people would give you 50 cents or give you a quarter. And if you walked into the car, they would give you $1. And if you walk with them home, they would give you $2 and $3. So that's how I raised the money to do these fashion shows, the first fashion show. And so I must have raised about $2,000 or $3,000 over maybe a 6-month period of time. And I went up to Mr. Wonderful's. I was so young, they didn't take me serious. And I said, so how much is this to rent this place? And they told me what it was. They said it's going to be $1,000. And I counted out $1,000 and gave me a contract. And so I would go into communities to people, because Newark for me has always been a fashion capital. Everybody was into fashion, you know, it was our only form of entertainment. People would engage in the fashion shows, and I would start teaching them modeling and prepare them for my shows. And thus, the show came, the day came, and it was the room fit about 500 people, and it was about 600 people in there. And my mother she stood tall. She stood tall. She was like, that's my baby. I only tell this little part of the story is that when you are so convinced that this is what you need to do, there should be no one that ever stands in the way of your vision and of what your goal is. Right. Mother, father, sister, brother, whomever it may be, you have to live life for you. You can never doubt your abilities. You can never doubt yourself. I say to myself each and every single day of my life, I am romantically in love with Angelo Ellerbee. I love me some me. And because I love me, I can give me to others. And I can teach people how to love me. So that one show went on for 17 years. I brought in like Carmen de Lavalon and Joffrey Holder and Heavy D and everyone underneath the sun. But this go around for me was really trying to build culture in the city of Newark, because we starved for culture. Mm-hmm. And then it was what plagued the community so much in the 70s was AIDS and HIV. And it was such this horrible pandemic of misunderstanding of what this disease was all about. And because I was losing so many of my friends in fashion and in entertainment industry, and I wanted people to learn about this illness and this sickness and not shut the door to a community of people that God has created and granted life equally as they had life. So I began to go on my plight to educate, stimulate, and motivate people to the awareness of HIV and AIDS. And so I had a 2-part fashion show one year. And the 2-part fashion show was hosted by Susan Taylor and Antonio Fargas. And then the second part was hosted by Carmen de Lavalon and Joffrey Holder. And everybody came. There was 2 shows. There was a morning show. The morning show was for the kids. And my thought was, how can I get these kids to understand that this is a disease? And it's a disease that is plaguing a particular community, and you can't catch this by speaking to them or touching them or embracing them. And so what I did is I went out to all the AIDS and HIV centers and asked them if they would come and set up tables at my fashion show for the period of the morning to the evening. And thus they did. So we gave away so many tickets for these kids to come, but it was worth them walking away with a knowledge and understanding that you can't get sick by these people. Mm. And what had been plagued in the community, you know, it started off, the gay people did it, and from the gay people it was the monkeys, and it went on and on and on. And so it was really my job to really educate people about this disease through entertainment. And so was the fashion shows. It was Beverly Johnson, it was Iman's, it was Patty Cleveland, Bernard White. I brought in the cream of the crop so that people can really understand that Newark is not this scandalized city. We are full of class and we're full of sophistication. We're raising money. we're raising awareness and we're raising knowledge. So one of these fashion shows that I was doing, there was a young lady by the name of Camille MTume, who sponsored she came to my fashion shows. It was 2,000-3,000 people at this point that would come every year. And so backstage, she knocked on the door, and I guess I was standing there, and she says, "Oh, I just really wanted to meet you." I said, "Oh, it's nice meeting you." She says, "My name is Camille MTume, and my husband is James MTume." So I turned around to the person to the left of me, and I said, "Who the hell is James MTume?" And they said, "Angelo, Juicy Pro." I said, "Oh, nice meeting you, no other bit." So she asked me if I would style MTume's second album, which was called You, Me, and He. And I said, "Oh, absolutely." Camille and I became brothers and sisters. We loved each other. We understood each other. I was like a focal point in fashion. And so and she was a designer. And so I would introduce her to this one, introduce her to that one. And then one day, MTume came to me and he says, "Listen, if you could do all this stuff for Camille, why don't you just run my business? Why don't you come and manage me?" I said, "Man, I don't know nothing about no music industry." And he says, "Well, I guess maybe it's time for you to learn it." And so, thus, I would come to his house each and every single day, and I would be sent over to Sony Music every day.
Wow.
And I felt so stupid. Those white folks looked at me like I had 4 heads. I didn't know what the hell. But every day that I would come from the meetings, MTume had a room in his house. It was the yellow room. And that's where you really went into to get spanking. You get your spanking in there, you get your lessons in there. And each day he would go ask me questions, answer. This is how you answer a question. This is how you sit in the chair. This is how you address people. This is how you do this. So after like 8 or 9 months, somebody called MTume and said, "Yo, I think your boy finally got it. He was asking so many questions a day and that he was not going to tolerate this and he wasn't tolerating that." So when I walked back into MTume's house, he looked at me and he smiled. He said, "Fashion, huh? I think it's about the music industry now for you." Thus, I started to run this company called Iflame. It's about the 80s album. I created the whole cover of the album and shot it and da-da-da-da. And then I began to manage all the groups because he had a production deal on Sony/Epic. And so all the groups that he would manage or oversee, supervise, I was the point person. So I got involved in the whole bit. And then we got an offer to do the music soundtrack for a major motion picture called The Native Son. This was the first motion picture that Oprah Winfrey started.
Wow.
Then it was the playwright Richard Wright. And then I had the pleasures of working with James Baldwin. And when he said James Baldwin, I was like, really? And so he said to me, "I want you to come and meet James." You had to really know MTume to love MTume. I mean, I love this man so much. He was always about a joke. He would say, "Come and meet your family. I want you to meet your family members." And so I went and I met him. And after meeting him, it was the most incredible experience of my life. And so from that, I started my business in the corner of my mother's basement. I left MTume, started my own business in the basement of my house, continued to do the press for MTume. The movie went well. I went on board 200 newspapers because I know nothing about no publicity. Started to do what I needed to do in terms of taking people's names. And, back then it was no emails. You had to mail the packages. And so I would mail the packages. And after mailing the packages, I would wait for the people to call me back. And so after they would call me back, they said, "Okay, we're gonna do the story." That's how my publicity began. It was not set for me to be a publicist. So you don't never know how opportunities are going to present themselves. So you have to always be prepared for the unknown. And that's one of the great things that my mother taught me. Just be prepared. And that's what I go about to tell young people in this industry. It's not your time, but be happy that it's not your time. Let it be somebody else's time, and take the opportunity to learn this business that they call music, because it is a business.
It is, and I'm glad you said that, Mr. Ellerbee. Like, Double Exposure Media has helped so many in the industry. You've been afforded the opportunity to work with, like you said, you rolled out a list of names before you even knew how big these people were.
Yeah.
You even worked with Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, like the list goes on. So with stepping into that full role, what was that transition like?
Well, it was a transition of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
You got to understand the mindset of people. And there was two faults that I hadn't recognized to be fault, one being Black and the other being gay.
Right.
They wasn't having it. And I always said to people, once I learned that that's what the hesitation was, I would say, if you keep your eyes out of my bedroom and put my eyes in the boardroom, you'll see how smart I really am. Mm-hmm. So let's dismiss that. But there was a lot of jobs that I didn't get because I was Black and then I was gay. Wow. So it was like I was baseballed out. You know, you normally get 3 strikes. I got 2 strikes and you're out of the game.
Right.
But there was an endurance and a faith and belief that I've always always instilled in me. And so those were fighting things for me. Oh, really? You believe that? So I'm gonna show you. I can show you better than I can tell you. This is what I'm made out of. And you're gonna have to deal with me one way or the other. You know why? I prepared myself to win. I didn't care about winning every race. I just cared that I stayed in the race. I knew eventually that I was going to win. And I knew the importance of timing, knowing your timing and being prepared for when the time comes. That's what MTume taught me. Mm-hmm. He taught me about timing. How did I ever think a guy from Newark, New Jersey, that is going to one day handle a major motion picture with Oprah Winfrey and James Bond? But you have to also claim that victory. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was a child, my mother would say, you're going to be great, but I want you to be the greatest. I separated myself from life and I focused into my life. This is my life. This is my career. This is what I said I wanted to do. It's not a part-time job, it's a full-time job. And so therefore, I have to put the faith and the energy in myself and move progressively forward. My life has been it's been an escalator ride. It goes up, it stops. It goes up, it stops. But it always lands on the right floor.
That's right.
So the key thing is, like, I'm not excited about names. I'm excited about persons and personalities. I tell them all, I got fans all over this world, but I'm not your fan. Mm-hmm. I work with you and I work for you. That's respecting to you, respecting to me. Once we understand that, we can go for the long haul. So from that whole thing of building for my mother's house and doing all the things that I wanted to do, I then got an offer, a strange offer, to come to work at Chrysalis Records. Again, I'm totally unaware. I'm working out in the basement of my mother's house, not clear to understand how I was going to meet my obligations. When we're working out of the basement and I have my campaign 1 and campaign 2, I would sit back and create these things and go to try to sell it to the club artists in Newark. You know, like the Civils and the CC Rogers, all of these people were big in Newark. And I would go around and do my little show and pony dance. And then I got an offer to come to Chrysalis, which I thought was a joke. The first day I was supposed to go for an interview and I laughed at him. I thought he was joking, so I didn't go. The next day he said, Angelo, you're making me look really bad. The VP of Francis Pennington is waiting to meet you. So I said, oh, okay. So I got on the train, Newark, and I went over there. And it was a real job. So I headed up what was the Black Music's PR department.
Wow.
Bro, I was Stevie Wonder could see better than I could see because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I was kind of astute enough to know that I was grand before it was even to be grand. I was not going to sit on the floor that they assigned me to, which was the black music floor, in a cubicle.
Right.
I was already conditioned in my head. So I got up, I went to the executive floor. I'm looking around, hi, I'm Angelo, and I go through the whole thing. And I saw this secretary that was sitting outside, and I looked into this office. She said, "Oh, it's empty. It's our co-chairman's office." So it was two co-chairs, and this one guy, 6'5", comes out of the office. And I go, "Oh, hi, sir, how are you?" Putting on the whole PR little angle. And he says, I said, "Well, I'm new here. I'm in the Black Music Division, and I was just looking for space." Listen to this. He says, "Why don't you sit there? Chris doesn't come in until like one time out of the year. You can sit here." It was an office with a door, but it was in the executive floor.
Wow.
My maneuver. So when I called downstairs and said to my senior vice president, "I found my office space and it's on the executive floor," he said, "How the hell did you do that?" So I was able to understand the importance of relationships at a very early age. I would work overtime, not getting paid, but I knew that co-chairman's office was adjacent to my office.
Mm-hmm.
He would see me working late at night. Every single night, I was there till 11 and 12 o'clock. And so one day he came into the office and we were just having a general conversation. Back in that day and time, Black people could not go into the white side, the mainstream side at all. We dealt with Black artists and that was it. We had a conversation. At that time, they were representing Pat Benatar, Sinead O'Connor. It was just a list of very A-lists. So he invited me to come into to the marketing meeting. And when I came into the marketing meeting, you should saw those people. They turned pink. They said, "Angelo, I think you're in the wrong meeting." And the boss said, "No, he's not in the wrong meeting. He's in the right meeting. And he's gonna start answering Pat Benatar."
Wow. So you started managing Pat Benatar?
No, I started doing publicity for Pat Benatar.
Okay.
From Pat Benatar, I got into, in less than a year, I got a promotion to a vice president of PR.
Wow.
It was a rivalry between what was pop and what was Black, but it was all fine and dandy. I didn't stay long. That's not what I wanted to do. And by the way, there was one girl still working in my mother's basement running Double Exposure.
Wow.
So it was still, I was still doing what I know I needed to do. I always tell people, if you don't own it, it ain't yours. Get what you need to get and go where you need to be.
That's right.
So you take the experience. And I met a gentleman by the name of Doug Breitbart, Jewish attorney, and he was a manager for one of the club artists out of London. His name was Roland Clark. He had a big club record. We became very good friends. And I said, "Well, I think I'm gonna leave Chrysalis." He says, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "I'm gonna go back to my mom's basement and do what I do." He says, "I have an office on 7th Avenue. You can use a cubicle there." And that's what I did. There's a young girl named Karen Taylor who interned with me from the beginning. And very smart girl, very, very smart. It was me and her against the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go in there with such energy that nothing was going to stop me. I mean, there was no money. They didn't charge me any rent. I just had to do what I needed to do, like whatever they needed me to do, a press release or whatever. And then one day I was walking down the street, adjacent to the office that I was in with them was a space was empty, and it said 225,000 square feet. And I looked up and I looked down, and downstairs there was an Italian restaurant owned by Italians. My name is Angelo Antonio Ellerbee.
Mm-hmm.
But I was smart enough to know that these white folks was not going to rent to this black man on 7th Avenue, this place. But my lawyer was Italian. So I had him and his assistant come up.
Wow.
They did a whole round of looking at the space, took pictures. And he says, well, Angela's available if you want it. They did the whole contract, the whole bit. I didn't have one dime. I didn't have a nickel. I didn't have a penny, right? So I'm walking down the street and I see bow-legged Lou from Full Force. It was like, Angela, hey man, what's going on? Da, 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 da. He said, yo, I was gonna call you anyway, see if you could help me out. I'm trying to get this European deal. Who are you, really? Okay, so I said, send me the songs. So he sent me the songs and up for the bid. Someone called me the next day saying, Angela, I'm looking for, do you know how to get in touch with Paul Anthony? I said, oh, I think I could get in touch with him. I got a deal from Paul Anthony on this label. They paid me $30,000.
Wow.
So I was able to rent the facility. It was a floor, kitchen, bathroom, 2 bathrooms. It was phenomenal. I didn't have the money. So after I took the $30,000 and invested in the rental and a chair or 2, and then it had to be phones, and then. But I guess that the story that I'm trying to tell is when you believe in you, and you have the faith of God, all things are possible. And I had a wonderful friend, his name is Byron Barnes, he's a makeup artist. He created the Iman's line of cosmetics. He had the money. So he came into the space and he was like, oh no, we gotta do this. Your office has to be all white because that's my favorite color. This has to be. So what I'm saying is, it was my time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was rewarded. This gift of this office, this gift of these 19 employees, then having a roster of the Ginuwines, of the Mary J. Blige, of the Alicia Keys, of the Salt and Pep. The list went on. And now I am working, doing a lot of independent work at Double XXposure in the 7th Avenue office. And I run into this gentleman by the name of Hiram X. I saw him in Philadelphia. It was so funny, in a soul food restaurant. And he walked up to me, he says, yo, man, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I do da 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 da. Time went on. And he came to me and he said, I got this group. And he was a senior vice president, if not the president of Island Black Music.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what you can do with this group. The group was called Dru Hill.
Wow.
So he didn't give me no bios. He verbally told me about them, where they were born and reared and the whole bit. So I went back to my office. So there was 9 publicists, one that dealt with hip hop, one that dealt with R&B, one that dealt with whatever. Everybody had to give me 5 interviews. I didn't care what they were. So we had a total of some 30 interviews. So I called Hiram and I said, how do I get in touch with the group? He said, for what? I said, I have these interviews that you actually. He said, Angelo, how the hell have you got interviews and you don't have no bio, no music? I said, it's all about relationships.
That's right.
Then he said, he saw this remarkable job that I was doing. And then he said, okay, so I want you to have a listening party for me. Let me see what you can come up with. I said, okay, this is what I see. I see everyone coming to the party in pajamas. And I see the stage as a bed. And I see that anyone that wanted to interview them had to interview them in pajamas. And he was like, I'm not understanding, but when he saw it,
Mm-hmm.
he said, you really got people up here in pajamas. So it was like the waiters had no tops, the guys had no tops on, the girls just had the tops and the bottoms. So it's all about presentation. But after then he says, so why don't you come my senior vice president of publicity at Island? And I'm still running Double XXposure. There ain't nobody no fool, because that's mine. we went back and forth about the money. Money has never been important for me. But this go around, I wanted to make sure I wasn't being taken advantage of.
Right.
And it was not in Hiram's plan to take advantage. He was about giving me an opportunity. And thus he gave me the opportunity. I had to meet, they offered me $125,000 a year. And I said, what am I supposed to do with that? This is me with no money. Remember, I have no money. And I'm offered this. He said, Angela, that's all I can offer you with your gray head self. And if you want to talk to Chris Blackwell about the money that you're looking for, I'll set up a meeting for you to talk with Chris Blackwell. Okay, I'll go to the restaurant and have a meeting with Chris Blackwell. I asked for $250,000.
Wow.
And they gave it to me.
Say word.
It's about preparations. It's about faith and belief. And when you believe that if I can't sell you me, I must sell your product to somebody else.
That's right.
So you have to study the subjects. Before I met with Chris, I learned everything in the world about all of his energies, his projects, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Now, I had at that time worked for Shabba Ranks. I worked for all the Marleys. I worked for Junior Gong. I worked for Beanie Man. I worked for all of the community, all of the reggae community. So he was very aware of my work. And then after he hired me for a senior vice president, I went to Jamaica to do his nephew's wedding. I coordinated the wedding. So it's about relationships. It's about being able to have a conversation and take the conversation and make it yours. And I think the missing pieces in the puzzle in this day and time, you got to step down from that grandeur and become humbled.
That's right.
And know that everybody is equal. You're no better than nobody. I don't care because you're handling this artist or you're handling that artist. You're equal because you're doing the same job. Now, if you have relationship, you may do a better job.
Right.
But you're still equal. And that's how you have to go into life. People want to like you. And I tell people every day, I like who likes me.
That's right.
You don't like me, I don't like you.
Period.
And it's okay. Period. And it's okay. So, I mean, that's been the spin of Double Exposure. Then, of course, I managed DMX for 5 years. And believe it or not, it was an experience. Trust me, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you it wasn't an experience, but it was an experience that benefited me. I mean, I went through all kinds of hell. I got called every name underneath the sun. But what happens is that was an opportunity where I got to be a senior executive producer of 8 major motion pictures.
Wow.
8. That's what he had. He had an 8 deal. He had 8 deals. And so and then I became his president of Bloodline. Then I started running his label. So, I mean, from that into continually still doing what it is that I do in terms of Double Exposure, all these things would trickle in and trickle in. And I guess one of the key points of my career is Mary J. Blige. It was Mary that opened up so many doors for me.
Wow.
And I think my first house, Mary bought, because I got so much press. 20th Century Fox bought my life story. Judith Reagan gave me a book deal. It was coming from everywhere. Overseas, people were getting into, like, the New York Times gave me, what they called me the Henry Higgins of modern day time, because I was teaching rappers the importance of diction and speech and mannerisms and correcting them and getting them right. It's all been a blessing. It's all been a blessing.
And all of this came about from initially learning from MTume. Like
Yes.
he taught you, and that was the old school way of A&R, old school way of artist development.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons, you have so many extraordinary reasons why people took a chance on you, but that you stood out. You were valuable. You're still valuable.
Yes.
So with that, with what you learned early on, and when you think about social media and artists now, how do you teach them now? Because I know you're still doing your thing.
It hasn't changed for me.
Mm-hmm.
Manners are manners. Diction is diction.
Mm-hmm.
Etiquette is etiquette. Voice training is voice training.
Right.
Taxes are taxes.
That's right.
You got to have the accountability to all of those things. And I think that makes you the well-rounded individual that you need to be. And you can't look at yourself as an artist, but you need to look at yourself as a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
You're the business. You must conduct yourself accordingly.
That's right.
And when you do that, you set the tone. For me, it's about being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
If you're consistent, if I keep watching your interruption blogs each and every single day, that's what I'm gonna look for.
Right.
I'm gonna look for that. And I'm just so very lucky and so fortunate that I have always been consistent. I never fell out the loop. I'm excited because I got an offer to produce 4 or 5 different TV shows for Black entertainment television for BET. I've started to write some things up, and I've made some submissions, and they have brought some things for me. And so I'm working on that I'm very excited about. I like working, so I have the icons and all the people that I work with all of the bit, but I like that new talent, the raw talent that I can shape and mold and prepare and share with them. And it's not about, they call me the GOG, and you call me whatever you want to call me. I have I think an incredible company of young-minded people who keep me young and fresh. And I teach them my OG ways, and they teach me their innovative ways of doing things. So we collaborate, and my artists are able to get a well-rounded table of information. So there's this young guy by the name of Picasso that I'm excited about. We just, he just entered, his video was just entering on Yo MTV Raps.
Wow.
I'm excited about that. I have this incredible marriage counselor. His name is Chris A. Matthews. And I love it when Black people come to the table with focus and knowledge and can help someone else out. He's dealing with this whole thing about Black men and mental health. And I'm really there on that. There is a wonderful lady that does this incredible podcast called The Foxworth Theory. And she's a delight. She's an older woman, so well spoken, so intuitive. She has such great intuition. She's just so intuitive. And I'm excited about her because she allows me to be who I am and to create for her. And then the list just goes on and on. And so I'm just very excited that God grants me this life that I'm able to live. I live very comfortably. And I'm happy that I think the struggle is not over. But the struggle is, I'm not struggling, and the struggle is not over, and that's a mindset. I think sometimes people get comfortable,
right,
and thinking that they made it. And I have not made it. I'm still working every single day. I'm still excited about my work, and I enjoy what I do. And so I think that's really the element of life. When you can appreciate the grant of life, how God has just granted you this way of living life. So I'm just really happy with being happy. Happiness is important. It's so temporary, but it's so important that people take the time out to appreciate the blessings that God has given to us. It's life.
Especially 2 years later, outside of the pandemic. But I'll tell you another thing, Mr. Ellerbee, that I really appreciate about you is that although you started over 40, almost 50 years ago.
No, it's been 55.
55 years ago,
Yeah.
you've grown with the times. Like when you said Mrs. Eugenia Foxworth, the Foxworth Theory, the graphics for her podcast is stellar. And the fact that you did that, like that's all you. That's crazy to me, the level of creativity that you have, and you're still going. So to stay innovative, how important is that for you?
I think you have to be current. You know, I want everyone to know that you didn't call me to do this interview. I called you. That's you know, people say, you're calling? Yeah, I'm calling because I want to stay relevant. And it's important.
Right.
So you go to those people and you don't have no shame in your game. Hey, babe, I need to be relevant. I watched you, maybe you can. It's like when you have no shame to your game, come to the table humble.
That's right.
Come to the table humble. They will address you and they will feed you with all their knowledge and their know-how. And that's how I try to do with my staff. I don't want you to think for 1 second I'm a big glass of water. I still to this day I don't take no nonsense. I want people to go and grow. Don't stay with me no 10 or 15 years. Get what you need to get and go.
That's right.
Grow. Do your thing. You can't be me. I'm the original. You go and you be your own original. Be who you want to be. But everything is a foundation, and people have to grow, and they have to grow away from the foundation in order to see the virtue of life.
That's right.
Yeah. So
smart.
That's what's happening with me. You know, I'm just trying to stay out there, and I'm just very, very blessed. I am so very blessed. Everybody needs to stop for a minute and say, I really want to thank you, Jesus.
That's
Every
right.
day is a special, you know, life is a gift. It's not a promise, it's a gift. We need to look at this gift like we have never looked at a gift and appreciate this gift called life. Because some people don't, they open up the box and the box is nothing in the box anymore. The gift of life is gone. Right. So we have to be thankful. And we have to, I always tell people, you know what? I'm not going to die with my knowledge or, you know, if the first thing somebody thinks about at death is your tangibles. I want people to learn from me. Take all of what you can take. Take it all. Get all of what you can get out of me. Because that's what I'm gonna leave you, my knowledge. That's what you can go and grow by. Ask the questions. My mother always said, there's never, ever a dumb question. You ask the questions, young man. If you don't ask the question, choose to say, okay, you sit over there and say you're hungry. And don't tell me you're hungry. Then you just go sit over there and you're just gonna starve. And we can't starve for knowledge.
That's right.
We have to be fed this knowledge. And the sad thing about this music industry at this point, nobody wants to feed knowledge. Even with the publicists, I've never seen so much craziness where people don't like each other for what reason? Oh, she doesn't. It's just like we all do the same thing.
That's right. Chill out.
No, you ask somebody for a mailing list. Oh no, it's a phone book, darling. It's nothing but a phone book with email addresses and phone numbers.
Right.
Give it to somebody if that's going to help them and allow them to create their relationships with you. What you got is what you got.
That's right. It's not going to hurt you.
It ain't going to hurt you. It probably will help you. You never know, these young kids could be the one that's going to pull you out of that bind.
That's right. That's right.
And they remember, oh yeah, I did. And they can call you back. Now that you have your roller skates on and you rolling, they can help you.
Right. Well, your whole life was built on building relationships. You never stopped.
No.
You know, so that's pretty impressive that that's like part of your montage. That's what you, even till this day, it's kind of like you said, the old school way of doing things versus how people are doing things now with a self-serving mannerism.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. It does.
So what are your top 5? Like you said, you reached out to me, which I with no brainer, Mr. Ellerbee. You already know, if Ellerbee called, Ellerbee got it. So,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, Mr. Ellerbee, what is the top 5 things that you look for when you're shopping your artists out?
Their independence.
Mm-hmm.
Their acceptance of who they are and not being ashamed of being who you are or their originality. Their diction, their speech. Mm-hmm. All these things provide me with the wherewithals of how you've been raised, how you can conduct business. All of those things are so very important to me. And then lastly, if you can sing and dance and do whatever you do, that's wonderful. I just want you to understand the practice of doing. People don't understand how hard it is to be a publicist. Everybody will come your way and you take their money. And the first thing I'll tell you, well, I wanted to see if I could get CNN, if I could get this and I could get, you know what? It's like one day at a time, sweet Jesus. Nobody wants to do nothing grassroots. Nobody wants to. So the plight of working with people, you have to first get them to understand what it is and how difficult it is for you to get a placement.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And they'll go, what publication is that? It's a publication. Somebody's reading it. Oh, that's very rudimentary. You got to begin somewhere.
That's right.
Nothing is rudimentary. Everything is assumption where people read. If it's a blog, if it's a podcast, whatever it may be. But you have to understand the job of a publicist. If you're a real, true publicist and you really, truly care about that artist, and it's hard. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to put somebody on social media and taking them to a party, then it ain't hard. You can do it. But if you have to whine and try to dine people from the grassroots to the urban, to the mainstream, to the pop, to TV, and then you got to understand, as much as we have grown in terms of electronic media with TV, white folks still ain't having black folks on their late TV. They damn well they're trying to block you from the morning shows.
That's right.
So to try to get someone of who you think of great worth and has great potential on a late night, even if you, and particularly if you're a black artist, it's hard as hell. You got to sell your children, and they still won't get. Then it's still a possibility.
Oh Lord, Mr. Ellerbee.
Never ever easy. It's not easy. And anyone that tells you if they have some new artists and they're trying to get them some exposure, it's hard as hell.
It is. It's very hard. But then you have to have that humility, like you said.
You do. Mm-hmm. And I tell people every single day, yeah, I still kiss butt. Yeah. Because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's just what it is. And when we can come together collectively as a culture and a community, we're strengthened.
That's right.
But when we are separated, when we don't like this publicist, we don't like it all falls down. It goes in the garbage. So you have to really, really think about not just you, but you have to think about the collective, the community of minority publicists. We need each other.
That's right.
We need the relationships that we all have to benefit. There's a wonderful girl that I love immensely. Her name is Tasha Stout. She works over, I think at E1. And it's a young, wonderful girl that is an extraordinary publicist. And she has been an instrument in my life to connect me to all these young, different publicists that I would have never, ever met. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, because that when you have a body of people working together and supporting one another, one of us can get to the next, to the apex of success. And if we have the great minds that I know that we do, we can help the next one and the next one and the next one. But it's about sharing this information and caring and doing for one.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ellerbee, and especially with sharing and caring and doing more, like you said, tell me about your work in the LGBTQ community, the current works that you're doing now.
It's a lifelong job for me.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up gay, know nothing else but being gay, and knew the trials and the tribulations of it, what it was to grow up gay. That it was always I was always discriminated on.
Mm.
I didn't walk around with a flag on my head saying I'm gay. You figured it out, you figured it out. It wasn't no secret in my life. But there were so many young people that I wanted to give them my trials and my tribulations in growing up, to tell them there's a certain way of doing certain things, and there's a certain way that one has to come across in order to enter into the kind of path that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to say, I think everybody should be who they are and what they are, and it all should be accepted. But because we live in white America and we live in this crazy society, I want to be able to groom them so that they can get a good job. Work with them on their diction and their speech and how they should dress and that whole other bit, so they can go anywhere they want to go. I want to make sure that they're able to get scholarships so they can go to school. I want to make sure that they can support themselves, that they don't have to go to a house where someone is feeding. I want you to have your own. So I go around and I lecture and I teach, and it's, it's no big auditorium that I go to. Sometimes I'm sitting down with 10 kids in front of me, but 10 kids that will call me up and say, I can't pay my rent this month, or I can't do this, and I need food, or I need this. That's what it's all about. I continue to do that. I was sitting on the board of directors, the chairman of a gay men's health crisis in New York City for about 4 or 5 years. And I felt myself not being, it wasn't appreciated. It was like, I felt like if I was able to move away from the title and get to the people, that was my best way of reaching them and touching them. And so I try to be as instrumental as I possibly can to my community of people, because I want them to be loved and respected. And I want people to accept them for who they are and stop being judge and jury. Mm-hmm. That's problems that I've had growing up. I remember many years ago, I went back and forth on a TV show about gay people. There was a minister who simply said that there was no gay people in his church. Mm. And I must have laughed for 10 minutes. And I said, sir, what you should do is knock on your choir door, see if there's any in there. If there's none in there, go to the deacon's door. Knock on that. Or go to the next door. The deacon. Somebody in your congregation is.
Right.
But that is, you can't just do away with a body of people.
That's right.
And then I had to start to look at all these churches who were denying my community inside their house of worship. Mm-hmm. Then I have to judge, well, if you cannot accept me, then you shouldn't be able to accept my money.
That's right. Period, fool.
So therefore, I would rather give my money to institutions that I know that are going to take care of people like me, mm-hmm. that are growing up deprived, growing up not being accepted. So yeah, I'm going to always be that. I'm going to always do that for in and everybody that needs a helping hand. Particularly, I cannot forget where I came from. Well, never forget it.
I hope you burnt that. Some bridges are absolutely necessary, and that one was necessary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the thing. And period.
That part, okay?
Yeah.
So, and Clark, can you tell people like how they can connect with you if there are some people who's looking for celebrity representation? Now, I did not ask you this one important question. When you're looking for clients, what are you looking for? Like, all clients are not created equal, and all money is not good money.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you something. In these 50-something years that I'm doing press, I've never promoted this company.
Wow.
Never. I've never spent a dime. It's always been word of mouth. And I don't necessarily go looking for clients. I really don't. I am so blessed that just over the weekend, 4 people called me. And I said, oh, okay, so let me listen to your stuff. And I'm not really listening to them. I'm looking at the pictures. I'm studying them. And then I said, oh, let me speak to the artist. And it's how they come off. There's no right and wrong, but it's how they come off, how I feel them, if they don't. And that's how I do my selections.
Okay.
I think, it's just like, I keep telling everyone that comes my way, what I do is not a cup of instant coffee. I don't drink instant coffee. I drink brewed coffee.
Okay.
It takes time. And if you don't have time, then you need to go back and you change the cup of coffee. Because I don't serve that in my restaurant. It spells longevity to me. It really does. It spells longevity. Instant, it's instant is Facebook. Instant is Instagram.
Right.
That's instant. But what makes you different? I see all these girls go, come on, y'all. Y'all really need to stop with all this ridiculousness, because that's just what it is. Everybody, I think it was Andy Warhol said that everyone was a star for 15 minutes, and then what happens?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what sets you aside, the longevity.
There you go. Staying in the race. It ain't about winning every race.
That's right.
But as long as you stay in that race, eventually you have to win.
That's right. And you've been winning for almost 60 years, okay?
Yeah. That has been totally good. Yes, John. Yes.
So where can people follow you and just find out more about you?
Oh, God, they're going to laugh at me. Okay, so my Instagram is Angelo Ellerbee. And everything else is that in Double Exposure. Instagram, Facebook. I really love, you know what I really love? I love LinkedIn.
You do? Wow, I am not a fan.
Why? You're so connected in there. You get a definition of who the person is, how long they've been using it. And it's just a place where people can go and gather information and contacts. It's so resourceful. When you talk about Facebook, it's a view, it's this, it's that, but I'm looking at relationships.
Right.
And that LinkedIn lets me know, oh, I need to call that person from that newspaper. I was trying to get in touch with her. There she goes. And all that information is inside of there.
Right.
And listen, I answer my own phones. I'm from that old school. If somebody wants to talk to me, you can send me an email. That's angelo@dxxnyc.com. You can pick up the phone. I still have a phone.
It's got a cord, okay?
You can pick up the phone and call me at 201. 201-224-6570. It's like, just be real just be real in your actions. Ain't nothing fake up in here.
Right.
It's what it is. And that's what I say to everybody. Be who you are, but be original.
That's right. Authentic.
Yeah, authentic.
Everybody's doing the same thing, but it's only you that's going to make that thing stand out. I love that.
We're on the same page. Yeah. We're on the same page.
Mr. Ellerbee, I just remember you giving me Matthew Knowles, and you said, interview him, but don't ask about the kids. And I knew.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Right, but I respected what you said, because how am I going to learn if nobody is telling me? So as a journalist coming in the game, you fed me those golden nuggets, and I kept that with me up until this point where when I do interviews, I keep it one way. I'm not a gossip blogger. I'm not a gossip columnist. I only tell the truth. And that's what sets me aside from everybody else.
It's so very important, you know, and the publicist's job is to tell you your who, what, when's, where's, and why's. But when people call me up for interviews with Dionne, I give them here's your topics that you need to stay on. These are the things you should talk about. These are the things you shouldn't talk about. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't.
No.
Because it's only going to make the interviewer upset. It's going to make for a nasty interview. So let me protect you and let me protect my talent by simply saying, stay on this course.
That's right. That's right. I appreciated that. So I'm like, okay. He said, don't ask. I'm not asking Nathan. If you want to talk about it, you do you, boo.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for our time tonight, Mr. Ellerbee. I hope we could do it again soon.
Anytime you want. Anytime you want. You're such a pleasure. You're such a delight. May the blessings continue to be upon you. May you receive every richness that you rightfully deserve. You're a sweetheart and charming.
Thank you.
I'm a hard study. Some people say I'm very difficult. Some people say that I'm not easy to get along with. But I'm a results person.